Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today I am going to answer some questions from viewers which have come in on the subject of wristwatches, which is a subject I could talk about all day, so it's been a pleasure. I've got a few watches here. I've got some images of watches on my screen here just so I can remain, appropriate when I'm talking about these pieces. So it's about 5 questions, nothing too excessive today, but it might promote some debate. Now the first question comes from Amatirabaz. Don't ask me, I just say the words. So it says, Dear Ash, should I get a Rolex GMT Master or a Rolex Kermit as my first luxury watch? I'd like to know your thoughts. No, okay, you don't mention which Rolex GMT Master. There's quite a range these days in different colours, different materials, different bracelet types even. So I'm going to take the generic and I'm going to take the GMT Master 2 Batman, the BLNR version with the oyster bracelet. That's the sort of classic GMT Master 2. So I'm going to take that one as my reference point. And when you say Kermit, I'm making the assumption, if we're talking about new, currently available watches, you mean the green bezel Rolex Submariner available in stainless steel at the moment. Some people call it the Kermit, some people call it the Cermit, the Starbucks, so on and so forth. But it's the green bezeled Submariner. And you've picked 2 of the most iconic wristwatches in the Rolex collection, not to mention 2 which are incredibly popular at the moment. So how do you draw a decision between which one to have? Now, I've got 2 on the table actually. I've got my own black bezel Rolex Submariner. This is the 40mm version. Granted, it's the older model. The current model is 41mm, although there's virtually no difference in them at all. And I've also got my GMT Master 2 with the red blue bezel, which also has the Jubilee bracelet. I've actually got a GMT Master 2 which has an oyster bracelet, very similar to the BLNR, so I've got the idea of what they're like. And the truth of the matter is, the thing that always strikes me between these 2 watches, particularly when you look at them in images next to each other and you hold them in your hands next to each other, do you know what? It really demonstrates the lack of imagination from Rolex when you look at these 2 watches, because in essence, they feel exactly the same. All right, the case is so similar that it's hard to differentiate them. I mean, what do they call it? The super case, the maxi case, whatever it's been called over the years. They are very, very similar. So when it comes to your making a decision, I think it really comes down to personal preference, because the looks are very much the same. And if you put the watch both on the same bracelet, there's not a lot in it to choose between them. It's whether you like the colours, the variation of colours which you often get with the GMT Master 2s, the extra complication with the GMT Master 2 which allows you to tell the time in a different time zone simultaneously to your home zone. And that's achieved by that extra hand called the GMT hand on the dial. So, yeah, the GMT's got that going on. It actually wears a little smaller on the wrist as well. It is 40mm against the 41mm of the new Submariner, but it's thinner. It doesn't have the thickness either that the Submariner has, which I guess is to allow this watch its additional diving capability. So 300-meter water resistance with the Submariner, only 100-meter water resistance with the GMT Master 2. But the fact of the matter is, it all comes down to aesthetics. Now I've got both. So I've chosen both over the years. I've got 2 GMT Masters, 1 Submariner. If I had to walk away today with only one of these watches, and my opinion changes from time to time, I would probably say the Submariner, because it is a watch which is more iconic. It's iconic Rolex, quintessential Rolex. It's the watch which people think of when they think Rolex. The GMT, less so, even though in recent years it's become more popular because of its colour schemes, particularly the red and blue one, very sought after. But for me, it would be the Submariner. Whether or not you like the green one or the black one, it's a matter of personal preference. I'm not a huge fan of green, to be honest, but I could see how if you like the colour green, it would be very, very desirable. I wear both of these watches interchangeably. I wear them one day, the next day, I'll just throw them on depending on the mood. But I do find the GMT Master 2 sits a little better on my 6.5-inch wrist. Not only that, but it's a little more comfortable, whereas the sub is slightly more beefed up because of its capability. Personal choice though, but for me, if it was a choice between both of these watches on the table, I'd be carrying off the Submariner. So there we go. Next question comes from Ultra Doug, who says to me, I have been researching the exact same watch that you own, the Cartier Santos. The lust factor is strong, and my tastes are leaning towards this aesthetic. So 2 months on, how are you feeling about your new watch? Well, sir, I'm wearing it now, in fact, and I'm wearing it right now on the optional leather bracelet which the watch comes with. You get both bracelets. You get the very high quality stainless steel bracelet with the amazing interchangeable strap thing going on, but you also get this light tan coloured calf leather bracelet or strap with the deployment clasp, which I have to admit I have really rather fallen in love with this summertime. Now, I don't make watch purchases very often. In fact, I bought this watch 3 years after my last watch purchase, so it took a long time to think about it, to distill in my mind what watch I wanted. And I went down the route of the Cartier Santos, basically, because I was thinking about a non-circular dial watch for some time. I'd considered the JLC Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso. Tried it on a few times, tried it on in Dubai when I was on holiday, tried it on in the UK in a jewellery store, a year or so apart. And something about the watch, the aesthetic, just didn't work for me. I loved the idea of it. I loved the brand. Everything about that watch sang out to me, except when I put it on my wrist. It just didn't click. I then tried the next obvious non-circular watch in that category, if a gentleman is looking for one, and I tried on the medium size Santos de Cartier. And I have to admit, as soon as I put it on my wrist, I thought to myself, yes, something clicked. And since then, I have thoroughly enjoyed wearing this watch because it's actually ticked all of my boxes. It is a daily wearer. It is a stainless steel watch, which is robust. 100 meters of water resistance, very capable, very good looking watch. And as you can tell, I'm a man with perhaps more classic styling in my clothing choices, quite a lot of the time. So this works rather well. Slips easily under the cuff of a dress shirt, as you can see. No issues with it getting sort of caught on the cuff of the shirt. And it just, I don't know, looks more stylish and classically elegant. I think it's the leaning towards the Art Deco style. I think it's the very simple dial. The blued hands on the white dial. Of course, now it's available in a huge variety. You can have the chocolate dial, the blue dial, the green dial. You can have a variety of different case materials. You can have a sort of two-tone with gold around the face and also gold rivets or screws in the bracelet. You can have solid gold, very attractive, I have to admit, I do love that, but at £35,000, merely a pipe dream. But yes, I am really loving it. Now, the point is, I sold a watch to buy this watch, and I sold my Rolex Explorer, 36mm Explorer, considered by many to be the classic, elegant watch that every man should own. I owned it for over 3 years. I didn't wear it a great deal. I wore it as a field watch, which felt a bit of an overkill because I paid £5,000 for that watch. It's worth over £6,000 now, at retail price. But it just, it didn't click for me. And I wrangled about it, but I thought, no, it's got to go. If I'm bringing something new in, it's got to go. And I worried that I would feel a regret that I let that watch go. Nearly 3 months down the road, no feeling of regret. Glad I replaced it with, or totally subverted it with the Cartier Santos. The Santos is actually a much tougher watch than people give it credit for. It's often in the mind, correlation in the mind, dress watch, because Cartier, fine jewellery store, got the royal warrant to the king of this country, considered to be more jewellery than a watch brand. And when we think of their watches, we think fine quality, maybe a little delicate. Not with the Santos. I can say with conviction now, after 3 months of living with this watch, it's a tough old piece. £6,750 is a lot of money, right, for a stainless steel watch. But it works. You can wear it every day. You can wear it with your finest clothes, even on your wedding day. It just does the job. So for me, no regrets. I am loving it more every day. And artistically, it's beautifully styled and it works well. Okay, so my next question comes from James Hendry, who says, Ash, what is next in your watch collecting journey? Personally, I think you should get rid of the Pepsi and buy something that you enjoy. Well, sir, the thought has crossed my mind. This Pepsi here, I've had now for over 3 years, 3.5 years, and it came to me without any significance in my life. So many of my other watches, for instance, I have a Datejust here, my Rolex Datejust. I'm going to talk about this in a moment, but this Datejust was my first ever luxury watch, and when I think of this watch and hold this watch and wear it, it reminds me of the day I bought it in 2018 on my father's 88th birthday, when we were shopping together in a town nearby. I saw this in the window of a store. I've been wanting to buy one for a while. I bought it. It's hyper special. It's my favorite watch, the watch I lusted after as a child, my first ever luxury purchase. I could never sell it. My Submariner, I've talked about here. I bought this, my second ever luxury watch, and it was kind of a gift from my wife. And again, it's a watch I don't think I could ever sell. My son particularly deeply loves my Submariner. So when the time comes, it'll end up on his wrist. So I don't think I could sell that. I've got other watches. I've got a Rolex Root Beer, which was a retirement gift for myself, from myself. Nobody gave it to me, don't get me wrong. But again, deep significance. I don't think I could sell it easily without a massive wrench. But the Pepsi, I just asked the jewellerers that I bought other watches at, can you put my name down on the list for one of those? 3 years later, I got a call, not anything particular. It was an October day. I went down, collected it. Yeah, I bought it really because there was a lot of hype around this watch. And when the jewellery store offered it to me at retail price, at that time, £7,750, I thought, how can I say no? When everybody in the world is trying to get one, I fell in a bit of luck and was offered one. So I bought it. And I've worn it off and on over the years, for a month here, a week there. It's been in rotation with my other pieces. Often wear it in the summer. And I do like it. But it's got no emotional connection. So I do think to myself, I could sell this. I could easily sell this. And then I think to myself of all of the watches I would like to have next in my journey as a watch collector. I'm too deeply invested in Rolex. I've got 4 Rolex watches, had 5, got rid of one, got a Cartier instead. If I sold this Pepsi, it would release some funds, a good amount of funds, which I could invest elsewhere. Now, I've looked at watch stats at the current going market price for the Pepsi. Now, at the moment, this watch at the authorised dealer sells for £9,350. So a lot of money. It's gone up a lot since I bought it at £7,750. But the market price is £15,563. So 15.5 grand. So let's say conceivably I could get 14,000 quid for this. I could more or less double the money I invested in it initially. That would be a nice walk away point with this watch. Now, of course, I'm not going to sell it now because who knows? There's a lot of talk that Rolex will discontinue this watch for all sorts of reasons. Difficulty in getting the colours right on the bezel, maybe let the watch sit in obscurity for a while before bringing it back. Who knows? So, and many people expected it to be discontinued in 2024. Now the speculation is it'll go in 2025. So I couldn't sell this watch right now, because if I did and it was discontinued, the prices would obviously shoot up, the scarcity factor would kick in, people want this watch, would think, well, I've got to buy it now or it's going to disappear from the market altogether. They'll pay a lot more money. It could increase by several £1,000s. So you find yourself in the situation holding on to a watch, hoping that something will happen in the market, even though you've got no personal emotional investment in the piece. So that's kind of where I am. I will talk about where I'd like to go in the future horologically in a future question, but that's kind of where I am at the moment with the Pepsi. I'm holding on to it, thinking if the price goes up because of a discontinuance, I may sell it. That's kind of where I'm hovering. However, I do wear this watch. The fact is I've been wearing this watch quite a lot lately because it's summertime here in the UK, and I think this watch actually wears rather nicely in the summer months. And in fact, I'm wearing the Cartier today because I'm dressed well, because I'm going out to a meeting this afternoon, and I wanted to wear a watch which was more in keeping with my normal styling. Whereas I do think the GMT is a little chunky. It's not a natural fit with maybe more classical clothing. But I have been wearing it a lot. And I gotta say, when you wear a Rolex GMT Master 2, sitting so beautifully at 40mm on a wrist with the lovely Jubilee bracelet, it does make you fall victim to the allure of a very classically styled watch in lovely colours, which fits very easily on a man's wrist. It will be a very difficult decision. My gut instinct is I probably wouldn't sell it because I'd never own another one, and it is a very special watch. But then you think, what could I buy outside the Rolex range with 15 plus £1,000? We'll see when that day comes, but that's currently where I am, James. I maybe sell it, but not sure. Okay, now my next question, flip the page over, is from Drew, who says, have you ever considered owning an Omega wristwatch? Because you rightly say, many people would say that a man who has a journey in the horological world who doesn't own an Omega is missing a piece of the puzzle. And maybe you're right. Omega, why have I never bought one? Well, the truth of the matter is, as I alluded to earlier, my first luxury watch was a Rolex Datejust. And the reason for that, we are a product of our upbringing, aren't we? And the influences that we're exposed to on our journey through life. Now, as a young guy, for me, coming up in the 80s and 90s, as I was, born in 1970, right? So I was 18 in 1988. For me, at that decade, all of the influences were Rolex, all right? Sonny Crockett on Miami Vice wore a Rolex. James Bond, Roger Moore wore a Rolex Submariner, like the one I've got on the table. And Rolex was the king. You looked at Formula One of my favorite sports. Rolex was splashed everywhere. And it was a massive influence on me growing up. My mental sort of correlation to success was always one brand, Rolex. And maybe if you looked outside the Rolex, it would have been Rolls Royce and things like that. I would have considered them in the same sentence. And then in the 90s, Omega, although they've been around a long time, of course, they really arrived in the 90s when they got involved with James Bond. That is when they really came into my horizon scanning around wristwatches. Of course, the Speedmaster have put them at the sort of top table of horology for a long time. But that's when Omega came into my sort of wheelhouse. And when Pierce Brosnan put the Speedmaster 300 on his wrist, it suddenly became everybody's favorite watch. I even had a replica one. Don't tell anybody, but you know, I wore one for a while. So I've had some sort of experience, even not real, with Omega. In the modern world though, how do I look at them today? Omega for me represent a brand which, yes, I am very interested in as a watch owner. But do I want to put my money into them? Now, when I look at the pieces which they currently have, many of their sports models, I find a little large. All right, so the Seamasters, 42mm, whatever they are, I just find them a little chunky looking and very, I don't know, they just don't elicit the same feelings of lust that maybe a Rolex does. The classic iconography of a Rolex Submariner is something I could look at all day long. But a Seamaster dive watch just really doesn't ring my bell. However, what does ring my bell is the Seamaster Aquaterra range. And the reason I like them is because they have different case size options. If we look at the Aquaterra, they're sort of their standard piece. I really do like it. I went and tried one on at a jewellery store, I think earlier this year. And I tried on the green model, which was from their Shades collection, 38mm. What a bloody great case size that is. Much as I love my 36mm Datejust, much more my size at 6.5 inch wrist, the 38mm equally wearable by a guy of my wrist size. Of course they do a 41mm for people who prefer larger watches, but that 38, ooh, it was a real sweet spot. And a lovely case, a lovely bracelet, the sort of sunburst dial looked beautiful. I really liked the placement of the date window at the 6 o'clock point on the dial too. There is something about the symmetry there. Having it at the 3 o'clock, as most watches do, and the Rolex does of course, with the Cyclops magnifier over it, it takes away the symmetry. I rather like symmetry. I bought the Submariner date version, sorry, non-date version, because I didn't like the Cyclops and the lack of symmetry on a dive watch. I didn't feel that a date was appropriate on a dive watch, so I went for the non-date version. So seeing it at the 6 o'clock point on the Aquaterra, it ticks all the boxes. I really, really love that watch. £6,200 as well makes it quite a bit cheaper than the equivalent Rolex Datejust-ish, right? Not quite, but you know, we're there or thereabouts. I could see myself owning an Aquaterra. I definitely could. At the moment, not really there. It's not on in my sort of immediate future, but I do like them. I do think they make an excellent watch, undoubtedly better than Rolex because of the movement quality. There is something about the bracelets of Rolex which I think are superior to Omega at the moment, but that watch I could definitely put on my wrist. And I do think that at the price point, it represents a really good purchase as well. Of course, it's more capable. It's got 150 meters of water resistance, whereas the kind of equivalent Datejust is only 100 meters. 500 feet of water resistance is a lot. Very capable piece. And of course, it's a watch which has been worn by James Bond. Tick another box there. It's got that style icon going for it. But yeah, I could do that. Okay. Final question, and this is a good one. This is from Come On Man, who said to me, if you could keep one Rolex watch only, which would it be? Also, if you had to start your watch collection again, what 3 watches would you choose? Okay, really broad question, and you're asking me without giving me a budget. So I'm going to stick to a fairly modest budget-ish here, maybe with a little bit of a fantasy choice at the end. Now, my first selection is going to be a field watch. As you can tell, rural living guy, spend a lot of time outdoors. I want something rough and tumble that can take a knock. It's not too expensive. I want something that I know is capable, that looks good and gets the job done. And I'm going to choose a watch which the British military chose, the CWC Mellor 72 mechanical watch. Available today at £569 from CWC, the Cabot Watch Company. And it is a watch which is in essence, although it's in their catalogue or back catalogue, this is sort of a reissue of a watch which was much more, which was an issued watch to the military back in the 70s and 80s. It's an interesting case shape, a tonneau case, and it is a 38mm case as well, which again, sweet spot. Having tried that Omega Aquaterra 38 on, this would just fit beautifully. And is a classic military field watch with a black dial with large Arabic numerals filled with luminescence, which clearly make it easy to read in the field with hands, hour, minute and second hand, again loomed up so you can see it in low light temperatures. low light temperatures, low light illumination sort of things. It's got a, just got it all going on for me. It's not terribly thick, 11 millimeters thick, so again, quite a wearable watch. It's got fixed lugs, so you have to wear it on a NATO bracelet or some other sort of strap like that. But for me, it just is the epitome of a field watch. It just really works. Superluminova is the what gives us that luminescence. It's got a Sellita hand-wound Swiss movement inside that watch. Sellita is an excellent movement producer. I've had them for many years. It's got water resistance, but only to 50 meters, which is more than enough for most people, let's be honest. 40 hours power reserve, scratch resistant Hesalite acrylic crystal. It's really a tough old watch that you can wear every day, and I think it's got its own super masculine styling. I would love to own that watch. The only reason it isn't in my collection at the moment is, I don't know, I just really haven't got around to it. And one of the things I like about it is the broad arrow marker above the six numeral on the dial. Now that broad arrow indicates the watch is part of the Ministry of Defence. Obviously, it's, in this case, it's not owned by the Ministry of Defence, but it's part of their back catalogue and released as a reissue. But that sort of stamp of the Ministry of Defence appeals to me too, because as somebody who served for 10 years in the British military, I've got that arrow stamped on me. It's stamped on my soul. At some point, I grew up in the Ministry of Defence. It made me a man. And there's a resonance there. I think you understand. And if you've served, you get it too. And that's perhaps why I'd like to have that watch on my wrist. Now, my second pick is a very easy one. Little bit more luxury, but a day-to-day wearer, and it's already on the table. And this is a watch which I've got in my collection. If I was choosing 3 watches from scratch, it would still be this watch. And it is the Rolex Datejust 36mm fluted bezel with Jubilee bracelet. Now this watch isn't available anymore, it's now been superseded. I mean, the current version of this looks very much the same, but my Rolex has got a continuous clasp on it, so continuous bracelet, so there's no obvious clasp. The bracelet is all one piece, gives it quite a jewellery look to it, but also my watch also has what they call the roulette date window or date wheel, because every other day is red. So today it's a black day because it's an even date day. Tomorrow will be an odd day. The date tomorrow will be indicated in the date window by a red numeral, and that's really quite nice too. I like the red days. It adds a certain elegance to the watch. The Datejust for me represents the watch which I wanted as a child. Growing up, I saw on the wrists of people whom I considered to be successful and have got somewhere in life. And although I'm still on my life journey, I've not got anywhere yet. I'm not successful in any meaningful way. But for me, wearing this watch on my wrist is an indication that my life journey has not been wasted. I love this little watch. It's a kind of piece of pseudo jewellery. And when I look down at the bright blue dial, which I have here, it just is my favourite colour, the colour blue. I got a blue car. My wife has blue eyes. Blue is important to me. And yeah, it's just got everything I ever wanted in a watch in the nice 36mm size, which fits perfectly on my 6.5-inch wrist. If I had to choose any watch over again, it would be this one. So I'm a happy guy. It's already there. So my final watch choice, let me just speed up to that. Oh, sorry, if you were to buy one of these today, they're about £7,900. So not a cheap buy, but you know, achievable by people. So, luxury watch now. I'm suspending belief in reality here, and I'm going nuts on the budget. If I had to buy one super luxury watch, it would be the Royal Oak Jumbo Extra Thin. Because the Royal Oak is a watch, again, which comes in some nice case sizes. 39mm in this particular case, stainless steel. 50 meters water resistance, and it has, and I would choose the blue Petite Tapisserie dial, which has got those interesting little squares in essence when you look at it. It's quite a simple watch really, but something draws me in about this watch. I like the integrated bracelet, the seeming complexity of that bracelet and how it all hinges together. It just has always attracted to me. I also to a degree, think this is the high point of Gerald Genta's watch design journey. Now, when people talk about Gerald Genta, I actually think he's been done to death, because when he designed a watch, they all bloody look the same, be it the IWC Ingenieur or the Patek Philippe Nautilus or the Royal Oak, and there's many others as well. They all kind of look the same, with the sort of porthole effect which he designed into the front, that elevated porthole around the dial. However, I think he hit his zenith with the Royal Oak, and I think it just works. And I think I could wear this watch as a one watch collection for the rest of my life. However, even this stainless steel Royal Oak is 31,300 quid, so it has to stay way over there in the fantasy collection, unfortunately. But if ever I lucked in on the lottery, maybe I'd go calling for one of these. I do rather like them. And finally, even more fantasy here. There is one watch I would rather like, and that is the recently released Cartier Privé. I think I'm saying it right, Privé model. And these are their hyper limited edition pieces. And there is one from the collection which they released in Watches and Wonders 2024, which I absolutely resonate with as soon as I see it. And it is the platinum one, would be of course the most expensive. These are way up in price. I don't even know how much they cost, but they're in multiples of tens of thousands of pounds. In such limited edition, you could never get one anyway. But I just saw this one in the interesting dials shape, I think what it is. And this simple white dial with a platinum case. I think it is exquisite. It is watch art in the extreme. It's never going to happen, you know, but you've got to have a fantasy piece, haven't you? It's good to have something to lust over, because otherwise life could be a rather boring journey. So there we go. Those are my 3 watches, sir, which I would choose. And that was my questions today. I hope you enjoyed my answers. If you did, click the old like button. Subscribe for more. Send me a question yourself in the comment section, or please send it on an email. I'd love to hear from you. You could support the channel by buying me a coffee, one-off thing, or become a patron. I make extra videos for my patrons every week, and I've got an intimate relationship with those guys who are like members of my extended family. And you can find the links to all of those things in the show notes below. So until the next time, take care. Wear your watch with pride and passion, whatever it is, and I will see you again very soon.